Hebu jaribu kuongea.
Hello.
Hello.
Testing 1 2 3.
Sebastian uko hapa wako.
Hii ndio live link.
Nakupata.
Basi sawa.
Sema jana umelogin huko kwenye migomba tu, nikasema huyu jamaa si yuko Bukoba.
Uko makini.
Mimi achana na mimi na shughuli zangu.
Setup za YouTube ziko sawa na huko ziko sawa.
Nakuja kulipa briefing miaka.
Naam. Usha login. Mimi nimekuona unakatisha kwenye uwanja hapo bro. Nikajua una distress.
Swala ilikuwa ni saa 6 kamili.
Saa 6 kamili tulikuwa Vodacom. Ndio tumerudi. Nije huko.
Yes, ofisini kwako. Kwa hiyo
Okay,
Inabidi ukae.
haya nakuja. Okay, let's see the visual. I'm thinking. I'm just thinking for the sake of the background. Itatoka hii picha.
Itatoka.
Unaona hii picha? Itakuwa. It's fine.
Haina shida.
Naangalia, unajua tunauza sura.
Kwani saa ngapi? Mbona unataka mbuzi?
Watoto tumeona hiyo. Bado wanasubiri kamili.
Hello? Is anybody home?
Hello, I am right here.
Hey,
Very
Mina.
good.
Hey.
Video.
Very good. I think the link is fine, Bakari. Seems to be okay.
Yeah, be okay. Just sorting my video feed.
Okay, very good. Have you enabled the sharing so that we can share maybe a few slides, inshallah?
Yes. It's enabled.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
So welcome, guys. Just give us a few minutes as we continue admitting people into our forum. Shortly. So far, I see we have 21 participants. So starting in about 3 minutes.
I don't say it again. Who am I?
Hello, Bakari. Hello. Hello there.
Hello, Chief. I see experiencing a big problem with my laptop. Everything seems to be not working. So I'm joining with my phone. And let's see if we can try and catch up. So good afternoon. Sorry for that technical hiccup. My name is Bakari Machum. I'm the MD of Mwananchi Communications. Welcome to our discussion today, and we are privileged to be joined by Mr. Mtuma Matthew. Mr. Mtuma Matthew is a long-serving journalist. He has worked as a managing editor for Daily Nation in Nairobi. He has also worked as the managing editor of The Citizen and the group managing editor at Mwananchi Communication early in the days. Currently the editorial director of National Media Group, which operates in East Africa, Kenya, of course, Tanzania, under Mwananchi Communications Limited, and in Uganda under Monitor Publication. So Mr. Mtuma will take us through the topic on on news gathering skills, technical production, and multimedia skills needed to be successful in the 21st century. And joined with us to discuss, once Mr. Mtuma is done with his presentation, is Asha Abinal. Will be one of our panelists. Also, we have Mina Ali, we have Lilian Urio, and we have Bill Sangiwa, and of course, Michael Kimoro. So once Mr. Mtuma finishes his remarks, then we'll ask the panelists to come in, chip in, and get to tell us what their take, what are their understanding on the challenges of news gathering skills needed and the technical production capabilities we need to build as we move forward into this digital transformation journey. So without further ado, Mr. Mtuma, I welcome you. You have 30 minutes.
Bakari, thank you very much. It's good to see you. It's good to see my colleagues from Mwananchi and all those other lovely places that we've been to in the past. I think with your permission, I will share maybe one or two slides. Not that they have that much content, but they will keep your eyes busy as I'm talking so that I don't bore you to sleep. Now, in terms of attacking this topic, I will ask that you allow me not to narrow my focus too much to the technical skills, because I'll deal with those, but also to provide some context so that we have a fuller appreciation of the nature of the digital challenge and generally the effect of digital on society and humanity in general. So maybe I will try and share these slides just to keep us busy as we run through. So I hope you can see my screen.
Yes. Yes, you can see your screen.
Okay, very well. Now, let me just start by saying that as far as journalism is concerned, everything has changed. Everything has changed. The mission of journalism has changed. Even at the atomic level, the smallest unit of journalism is a story. The essential nature and structure of the story has also changed. But it all starts with the changes brought about by the dominance, ubiquity of the digital ecosystem. Because now the average person, and not just now, I mean, going back 15 years, has access to every conceivable form of information. Then the question arises, and some of that information is more technical, it's better presented, it's in richer detail and more of it. And therefore the question arises, then in this environment, do you really need journalism? What is journalism for in this environment? Because people have got access to all manner of information. And don't say that the information that is available online is inaccurate. Because there is information from the WHO which is accurate. There is information from NASA which is accurate. So what is journalism for? And that is the first sort of packing. The purpose of journalism. We have to redefine that. And then if it has a use, if our journalism it has some use, and then this is an analysis is not necessarily original. It's available. To whom is it useful? If journalism is still useful, then to whom is it useful? And then that gives rise to the need for a redefinition of the audiences that we address. And number three, if indeed there is a need for some people, how do we meet that need? Because the traditional platforms and tools of journalism too have been degraded and probably belong to increasingly to the museum. And that gives rise to the technology, the platform, the distribution systems that we must redefine and build in order to serve a digital audience. Those three things. And you will find that even as you go through processes of restructuring your operations, that your company will begin to take shape in that direction. That your content becomes a pillar. Your audience services become a pillar, and your technology, the ecosystem that you develop for the distribution of your content, become a pillar. You can add other things, strategy and all that. And this again is a popular model that I'm sure you guys have seen. But that logically becomes the starting point. This is the Daily Mail from December 5, 2000. I think journalists, when we are presented sometimes with change, we may decide to bury our heads in the sand, and we pretend that that this big monster that we are facing is not real. That if we close our eyes, it will go away. No, it will not go away. Digital is not in the future. Digital is reality. And it has redefined not just journalism, but it has redefined the way we communicate with each other, and therefore the relations that we construct between individuals, between social units, and between nations. It is going to determine the future of humanity. The tools that we are making to communicate, a lot of those are going to be implanted in our lives within a short period of time. And increasingly, these set of things are going to happen to us, so that digital will define not just the structure of our communities and societies, but also the future of humanity as a whole. A few facts. I think what they suggest to us is that we live on the internet basically, and especially on social media. That the platform of communication between human beings today is basically a smartphone. For those of us who are still stuck in the Daily Mail editor kind of situation, this is a threat. For others who have agreed to face the reality, it's an opportunity. Africa is lagging behind, as I shall demonstrate shortly, in terms of internet penetration. But that really says nothing about the future of the continent, because growth on this continent is also, in internet use is also the highest. If your waking hours, if you're awake for 12 hours in a day, assuming that you obviously are awake longer than 12 hours, but taking an average of 12 hours, half of which you spend online, what does that tell you? It tells you that we live on the internet. That's where we live. We spend more time online than probably doing anything else. That's 7 hours in a day. And it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time. And then these are the other activities that these are the activities that we do online. I'm sure you've seen this elsewhere. The bulk of that time, the 7 hours that we spend online, obviously, as you would expect, is spent on social media. And social media penetration around the world is very high. Again, in Africa, it's slightly lower than the rest, not slightly lower than the rest of the world. It's significantly lower than the rest of the world, but again, growing very, very quickly. Internet penetration, in terms of users, in our region is 24%, but that can be misleading because there is no uniform cover, across the entire geography. So there are some spots where penetration is really low, but there are others, especially in the major metropolis like Dar es Salaam, where you find that there are actually more users than the 24%. And it makes economic sense to base our activities on the digital space. Okay, there is money to be made, and our lifestyles and where we live. We are no longer folks who live in the rural areas. I actually suspect that urbanization is underrepresented, undercounted, as it were. That if you look at the urban and peri-urban populations in East Africa, that the degree of urbanization is much, 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 much higher than is captured in these studies. And then also numerically, the population of this continent is growing. By 2050, 2.5 billion people. And out of that, the proportion of people online is also growing. So today, Africa may not be an internet hub, a digital hub, but in the next 20 years or so, it will make a lot of sense. So let me focus a little bit on the nation and our response to these realities. Our digital journey is long. I think we built our first site in 1998 or 1999 or thereabout. And we spent a decade learning and investing, but unfortunately we didn't change. You can learn and have the information in your head, but that information actually does not affect the way you behave and the way you relate to people. So we had the knowledge, but we didn't build the products. We didn't procure the technology. We just had that knowledge and we had just a website that we relegated to some corner. However, from 2019, I think we've taken decisive measures. And those measures include the ones that I have put on this slide. First, we don't regard ourselves as a publisher anymore. We regard ourselves as a publishing and technology company. And our core business is no longer the publication of newspapers and the production of TV content. Our primary activity is the production and distribution of digital content. All our resources now, both human and financial, are focused on building digital products. The structure of our company is changing. Very soon we are taking on board a CTIO, the Chief Technology Officer, as a director of the company. And this reflects the fact that we are moving decisively from the traditional business that has sustained us for 60 plus years. And we will be a technology and publishing company in a short period of time. We don't regard the existing products as our flagship products anymore. Our flagship product is Nation.Africa, which is the site that we developed to respond to this. And our primary platform of publication is now mobile. So what this means is that even when you file your story, the first instance of publication is on mobile. The rest is secondary. As opposed to what used to be the case previously, that you bring your story and first we publish it in the Daily Nation or in the Citizen, and then we spin it off to the digital outlets. Now it's the other way around. And I will show you some of the structure of our newsroom. It reflects this change in posture. The scope of our journalism also has changed. We don't expect that our newsroom will just serve Nairobi and its neighborhoods. We are looking at a continental audience, and why not? I mean, you don't need to transport anything from East Africa to North Africa for your product to be available. Now, I'm not saying that we are doing this and doing it well. I'm just expressing the intent and the plan. You could, of course, just focus in a narrow geography if you wanted to, but experience shows that the bigger your cover, the better, generally speaking. And so we are looking at a continental playing ground, as it were. If you're going to offer your content and if you're going to ask people to pay for it, two things here. One is that it has to be worth paying for. So even as you're looking at a big geography, your second priority is the quality of your content. Because you're putting your content out there where the Economist is, where the New York Times and many other publications are. You can't put it out there with spelling errors and poor execution. So any digital awakening starts with quality, and then the tools that underpin, the pillars that underpin that journalism, whether it is your style book, whether it is the instruments of quality in the newsroom, they all must fall in place. Quality is second to the geographic definition. Thirdly, the way you structure the newsroom must reflect the fact that you appreciate this reality and that you're not just doing your traditional product and creating a small room for your digital effort. The digital effort must be the dominant activity in the newsroom. So in this the schematic that which represents the nation newsroom in Nairobi today, on the left, those folks are digital facing. And all these functions sit together in the newsroom. Because the folks who are dealing with selling the copy must be there at the point of origination. Because again, the stories that you do depend on certain things that happen on the paywall. Okay? And then the people who are speaking to your audiences, remember what I said about the audience being redefined and becoming a fundamental aspect and a fundamental concern for the journalist. So the person who is involved in speaking to the people who are reading these stories must be there at the point of origination. And the fellows who are facilitating the research and the collection of analytics and its presentation must be sitting in that. So all these digital functions are in the newsroom, together with the journalists and everybody else. It's not just a question of creation and production. It's also a question of research and those other functions. And then in the middle, of course, the realization that it's not a text business, that it's also video and audio and visual storytelling devices. And that constitutes an integral part of content, all right? And it's only after you have done all these things, then you serve the copy and you make it available for your digital, for your traditional platforms, that is newspapers and television. So that's my third point. And I started with the question of the footprint that you define. It needs to be big because digital rates tend to be small. So you need to feed, the funnel needs to be big to feed your especially if you have a paywall or you are directing the traffic to certain places. And then secondly, you need to worry about quality, and then you need to worry about structure. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on issues of workflow, which are too specific, I think, because not all of us are journalists. But let me just go to an important aspect, and that is the importance of research and the importance of data. In the old days, and this speaks to how the entire question of product development and innovation has changed. In the old days, we would sit down as editors. We may or may not invite some marketing guys to come in with some insights, but using our wisdom, we would decide that we are going to launch Mwanaspoti. It's going to be in Kiswahili. It is going to have a bit of popular content in terms of entertainment and a lot of football. And we'll build a product and put it in the market and see how it works. Now, the way things happen or must happen now, beginning with what story you assign, even what story you follow up, starts with the data. That what is it that our audience is telling us about the things that they want to interact with? Where do they interact with these things and at what time? And therefore, so that we can go and collect and make available. Now, it doesn't mean that all journalism is demand-led, but a significant part of it, because you can't order the news. It's not like chips, where you go and say, nipe naomba chips na kuku. No, No. But a significant part of it is based on audience needs and audience needs as expressed in the data that you are collecting. So again, without getting lost in the arcane details, on a continuous basis, you collect analytics and they help to shape your decision making. And on the other hand, on the long term, you collect information about habits and what those habits are telling you about your products. If you have a product that nobody is interacting with, then it means that you need to do something about it, okay? Which is an opinion that you form from observing the data over a long period of time. And then, of course, how are people, what do they feel about the products that you're putting out? Again, on the basis of that, then you can you are also able to take certain other decisions. Just to emphasize that user experience is only second to content in terms of determining whether you're going to build products that are of any value to your audience. In addition to being able to write well or to edit well, to produce clean copy, there are additional skills that we must learn as journalists. And I know this is not new. Those of us who spend our time in the newsroom, but we have to learn additional skills. This is part of the survival kit for any journalist. And I shall emphasize this by breaking it down into what every reporter must bring to the table and what every editor must bring to the table. Commissioning for the web is different from commissioning for my newspaper, for example, when I was an editor.
Sorry, Chief, to interrupt you. I'll give you 5 minutes to wind up.
Have I already consumed my 30 minutes?
You are left with 5 minutes.
Okay, very well. I'll summarize in 5 minutes. So let me start with the last one. And I know this is one skill that probably many people might feel shy about training journalists on. Journalists think money is a dirty word, but every journalist who comes into a digital newsroom must know how to work with the Nation Media Group, how the Nation Media Group makes money. And if you're making money by selling stories, then you need to understand what kind of stories to actually sell. You need to have a strong sense of data, not just on the basis of reporting. Yes, you should be able to do data stories, but also you need to be able to read how your audience is responding to your stories. And like I promised, I think you can be able to read this from the slide. What is it that a reporter and a sub-editor should be able to do or should know? And what do editors need to do and to know? Things like churn management, things like being able to build communities and manage them, a sophisticated sense of social media and its use in the distribution of content. You need to move away from that dictatorial process where you sit down and determine what people are going to read or view and become more iterative. This design thinking thing where you build a hypothesis, you build the prototype, you put it in the market, you learn from it, and then you scale up. That is the way, that is the thinking. Even if you want to introduce an insert or something, it's no longer the traditional way of doing things. And I think, Bakari, thank you very much. And I thank the audience and the panel. And I will end my presentation there and probably join the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mtuma, for taking us through that journey. And what you are telling us is that we need to redefine our journalism. What is the purpose of journalism? Are we living to what the audience want? And do we know exactly what do they want? And if we know it, how are we looking at making sure that we deliver that information in a more useful and in a manner which is convenient to our readers? So opening up to the panelists, I'm coming to you, Mina Ali. I will ask you to relate on our topic, news gathering skills, technical production, and multimedia skills are needed to be successful in 21st century. I know you're running a very interesting program. I enjoy the way you run your program on BBC. But then take us through. Mtuma talked about the need to redefine our journalism. So I want you to relate with what you are doing and whether you can showcase some of the skills you are using in actually collecting news and disseminating news in a different way.
Thank you very much, and also Mr. Mutuma, thank you, because that was, I was just screenshotting everything. That was a lot of information right there, and I think any journalist right now does need that information to have it and know, and again, as you say, redefine our journalistic ways. I think social media came and took us to a whole different era, and it is sad because, as you said, Africa's consumption on social media is still slow. And this is one of the, I believe one of the reasons would be the fact that when social media walks by, we underrated it. The whole world did. We thought it was something that would pass, but it did not pass. In fact, it becomes even bigger day by day. And so we're at a point whereby we do need to look at it. We do need to think about who's using social media. We do need to think of a way to reach to them. It has, I think, redefining our journalistic ways, or redefining ourselves as journalists with social media first begins with, old days, I think you would have to listen to two mediums, which would be, or you'd read the news from the newspapers, you listen to radio, or you'd watch television. But now all these things are supported by one thing. And sadly, it is not the main thing, but it is something that aligns or goes with all of these mediums that are traditional mediums that we've used for a while. And so if you do not give new media, we call it social media, we call it new media. If you do not give new media the attention it deserves, then one like your other medium will go down. So it has become a thing that works hand to hand with our traditional media ways, which is radio and television. And in other countries, in some countries that I know of, first world countries, I'd say, they are actually closing some radio stations and some television stations and thinking about more ways to invest on social media instead. So this is a wake-up call to all of us. Maybe because Africa is moving slow into social media, then that's not happening to us. But this is definitely something we should wake up to and see how we upgrade what we already have. So in my me as a journalist, one thing is through a program that I did or do with BBC Media Action, it's called Niambie. We decided to, first of all, I like that when we started, we decided to choose which platforms we will use to air these youthful programs. And I like the fact that social media was given a name. It was, we want to air on radio, but we also want to air on social media. And so we will sit down and create content with, for social media. And I think what Mr. Mutuma spoke about our newsrooms actually having in social media in their head and in considerations and thinking, oh, what can we do for this medium? So we create content with BBC Media Action, the program I was doing, Niambie, would create content on radio, but we would also make sure that we create a version of it on social media. And our show would air on weekend, but we would make sure that the show, the repeat of the show, people can catch it on social media after it's been aired on radio. And also to look at, matter of fact, it's actually kind of easier to know the audience through social media, because social medias like Instagram already give you insights of who is following you, what do they like, what do they, what is their most enjoyable content. So it's kind of made it easier for us. So I really think it's a platform we should look at. We should, as a nation or as journalists, stop saying, words like, I'll say this in Swahili, maneno kwenye mitandao, maneno kwenye mitandao. Most people talk about this, even the government at some point when something raises in social media, the way they address it is maneno kwenye mitandao. Not the government in whole, but some government officials have done that before. And so si maneno ya kwenye mitandao. It's we need to look at mitandao. And I think these are also challenging times for journalists, because before you had to go on ground, you had to go look for news, you had to go to Mwenge and see who had an accident and see what happened after they had an accident and actually find people there. But right now, social media has brought us sources that are online. There's a particular person that's at the event, taking a video, taking a picture and sharing it, and you have direct contact with your source online. And we've come to an era which before we focus on the skills to penetrate better in these times, we should also acknowledge that social media does exist. It does take a huge part. It does bring us closer to our sources, but it also does bring us closer to our investors or sponsors. At the same time, social media does, it pushes us to be more content creators, and that's a good era to be in, because now you in order for your content to go, you really have to be creative, you really have to think about it. So we have to first let that sink in, understand that now it's different times, and adapt to social media as it is. So that's what I think. But also, me being a journalist, I'm on radio, but I think I am different from most media personalities in Tanzania. And that is because of my existence online or my existence on social media, or how I had chosen to, give a closer look and closer focus to social media. I was written in The Citizen about an article about women with power on social media, something like that. And this is because of my existence online. There's so many ways as a journalist that you can use your social media positively, in which through my online platforms, I've made videos to educate my followers, which is mostly young people that look at me as an inspiration. I often speak about the right type of friendships. I often, I make videos about, I obviously share my work on radio. I share my work on what I do on ground for young people, but I also make sure to educate them through my social media platforms. Through social media, I've had the chance to gain more sponsors as a personality, as a radio personality. I've gained more attraction. And I could say at some point, I think social media has probably at some point paid me more than my very own job.
I see.
And so,
I see.
yes.
I see. Interesting, Mina Ali. I see you're flowing, and I like the way you have related the topic with what Mtuma said, redefining our journalism, and also linking
Yes.
it to the aspect of multimedia skills needed. So just briefly, tell us now in the venture you are doing, both on radio and on social media, what are the skills, what are the techniques you are using to actually collect, gather news you are sending to your audience?
So first of all, there's much more. There's so much knowledge. Again, I will put. I'll go back into the point of your source is right there. Before you had to go to the streets to look for them. Right now, they are right there. So let's say you have more knowledge about music, and I don't, but I'm on radio. You will publish it there, and you're just an audience. There is more sources right now if you decide to research enough. It has been, social media has been a perfect place for research. And it has been a perfect place to reach direct sources of news, direct sources of whatever it is that you might need. If I need today, for example, in the segment I do, sometimes I need information about, all these artists. It's easier now because you find that information on their pages, publishing it themselves, and you just have to look for a different angle to go with it and a more creative way to present it. So I do gather information online. I do learn online about the industries that I present about, mainly music industry. I learn a lot online, and I know how to develop a story from there. Although one of the most important things that I want people to know is, as much as you learn and take from online, you should also remember that as a journalist, you need a way to prove your story, because now it has been a world whereby people just somebody uploads, the other believes and shares it. But as a journalist, before you share it, you need more research. So I think online has become a starting point for so many people right now in news gathering. But it's so important to go and cross-check information. So after I have seen something online, I do go and make phone calls. I try to reach out to the people. I go on Wikipedia, try to get more information. I ask people around me for more information to complement what I saw on social media. So it's become a place with everything. Whatever you need, you just need to be there for it.
No, thank you very much. Very interesting that social media is becoming the source of news and research reserve we can exploit. So coming to you, Lilian Ulio, I know you are in multimedia production with the experience on audio and the visual and online work. So the challenge of news gathering, the visual side of things, how do you go about actually getting the quality video, quality content Mtuma talked about? If you want to sell that content, it has to be of high quality. So take us through what are the skills needed and the challenges of creating content or other gathering content using these digital tools. Lilian?
Hi, Bakari.
Yes, Lilian, go for it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so for me personally, it's a little bit easy because I'm kind of a bit lucky. I come from the old school era of, okay, sorry, let me just, sorry, having a little bit of a technical issue here.
Just brief when you are.
It seems to be slow. I've done it. I don't know what's wrong.
You do.
Okay, let me just continue with since the video is giving me issues, I'll just continue. Okay. So for me, basically, it's a little easier because I'm lucky that I've come with a little bit from the background from old school where you actually had to learn how to use the actual cameras and everything. And so it was much easier for me. But from what I can say now, For journalists right now, I would actually say they have it easier, although for the journalists in East Africa, I would say it's a little bit hard because they're still being taught in the old ways. They're still being taught when it comes, for example, to gathering news and so on, gathering videos, they're still being taught with old formats, old big cameras and so on. And they're not really being given the opportunity to use the tools that are out there. Because right now, when I go out and I gather stuff, I don't not only just rely on my old cameras, the big cameras and so on. I can use my phone. It gives fantastic quality. I can use editing software right on my phone. Some of these editing softwares are free. You can't even imagine it, but they are free and they're really great quality tools, especially if I'm experimenting with something, are not tools that I actually have to pay for, are not tools that are clunky and big and I have to put a subscription and so on. So I would say that yes, there is a challenge right now of journalists having to learn digital skills to survive or to keep their work. But the great thing is that these digital skills that they're learning are skills that they can take on even if they move on to other careers, even if they do other things in their lives. So they do need to understand how to do visual storytelling. They do need to understand how to have great awareness of all these social media platforms and how to work with them. They do need to understand how to work with data and to have and to understand how to really do their fact checking. Because as the panelists who just finished, Mina Ali explained that everyone right now can access these platforms. Everyone right now can put a story and a report out there, and everyone right now can actually be the first one on the scene and then tell you, hey, there's an accident here in Mwenge and 1, 2, 3 happened. It's up to you once they send you that information. It's up to you now to use your basic journalistic skills now to check, is it true? Did an accident happen? And so on and so forth. Another thing that I would like to, sorry. You were about to say something, Bakar?
Go on, Dylan.
Okay, so okay. Another thing that the presenter actually pointed out, a lot of journalists and I had to learn not only just to use, but also to appreciate and to.
You can just switch off your video. Maybe you'll have much better quality. Yeah, go for audio.
Okay.
Yeah.
That works better. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So another. I was explaining that something else that I would like to also add on what the presenter and also the previous panelist explained was usage of data. Right now, that is really, really key in journalism and in our work because it really helps in telling our stories. But another thing on the other side, not only does it help in telling our stories, once you've been able to learn how to use all these other skills, such as photo, graphics, and all these other skills, utilizing data and turning it into a visual story really helps your stories. And as the former panelist explained, it really helps once you put on your social media platforms and so on.
Oh, thank you. Lillian, I understand you conduct training on visualization and what have you. What's been the challenge? How do we whet the appetite of young journalists to get interest, create interest to want to learn these new skills?
Yeah, that has been a challenge. I think the challenge for them is that they look up to former journalists, people who already been in the industry for quite some time, and they want to emulate them. You can even see the way they want to present like them and so on, and they want to use tools like them. And also they're mentored by some of them. Unfortunately, this is the first challenge. Some of these older generation journalists do not use these tools. So some of these young journalists are thinking first, why am I even being pushed to learn all these different tools when so-and-so who's been at it for 20, 30, 40 years is great at what they do, and they're not using these tools. That's the first one. Second one is that they come straight out of college, so probably really good in university. They were getting straight A's, straight B's, and they weren't taught that this was important. They come into the workforce and then they're like, wait, hold up. I'm inadequate. I was a straight A student. I was a straight B student. How come now I'm coming to the workforce and then they're telling me, oh, you need to be taught all over again? What are you going to teach me? So I think for the industries, a lot of media company, media organizations need to start talking to higher education and tell them, listen, you need to start teaching them at this level. Because by the time we get them, we have now to reteach them. And yes, they come with great basic journalism skills, but they don't have the digital skills to cope. And as the presenter said, right now, you're not just competing within Tanzania or East Africa, you're competing within Africa. If you can have a podcast that can compete with people all over the world. So that student who's coming out of university today isn't just going to compete with Tanzania. If it's a Swahili podcast, you're competing with any Swahili producing podcast in the world. Whatever platform you put on it, you're competing with the rest of the world. So our higher institutions, our training facilities have to really redo their whole curriculums to fit digital skills in their training. Otherwise, unfortunately, students are going to come up there doing their best, straight A's, straight B's, and then they're going to be very confused because they're coming to the workforce and then they have to be retaught everything. And another thing, let me just add on to that. For a lot of students who are, well, for those who are still students or who are just starting out right now, go out there and experiment, really. I mean, just get online, don't just spend time on social media. I know it's important, but really spend time looking for these free tools. Because a lot of these free tools, whether it's for photo, for audio, for data, for text, for video, there are versions of them which are either free or on a freemium basis that you can use for every of these tools. For every tools that, let's say, Mwananchi pays to get information or to use for their editing and so on, whatever is standard industry, there's a version of it that you can start learning on your own. So by the time you go, let's say, work for Mwananchi, let's say you started on Canva, which is has a freemium model. So you learn how to do graphics and so on and basic. By the time you go to Mwananchi, even if you never learned how to do Adobe Illustrator, you have the basics, you've practiced. And on the side of companies such as Mwananchi and so on, other media houses, you really need not only just to give these new and up and coming journalists time to just gather news and so on, but give them time to explore. Yes, I know for Tanzania, we do have one of the lowest rates of internet access, I mean, in terms of payments for bundles and so on. But even though it's low, but it's still not low enough to say not everyone can actually afford to just buy an unlimited bundle for a month and experiment. So it'll be great for media houses to actually allow, have a time, know that after work, someone can stay an hour to hour, just research on the internet, and don't be mad that you find somebody there just sitting there on their lunchtime, they're online, just because they're not working on the story, because they can be researching, finding out what's the new tools out there, finding out what can I use, finding out a better way of editing photos, finding a better way of presenting visual data and so on. So that has to change. Back in the days, if you're caught online and you're not on your story, you're wasting our time, you're wasting the company's money. No, editors and other managers have to think differently. They have to research, they have to find out this information. And if they're doing it and if they're working for you, they might as well, do it on your time as well.
Thank you, Lillian. What matters is the deliverables, and you are taking us to appreciate the fact that once you are online, once you're on social media, it's a borderless country, so you shouldn't focus only in Tanzania or Kenya or Uganda. You can actually explore the potentials you can reach all over the world. So thank you.
Excuse me, Bagari. Can I just seek your indulgence and just emphasize something that the leader has said, which I think is absolutely important on this topic. Sorry to interrupt. I know time is very valuable. But the question of skills, multimedia skills for journalists, is an existential question for the individual journalist. Because no media house is going to hire a photographer or a videographer and a sound person and all that to accompany you when you go to do your story. And your story can't just be text. You've got to have video, you've got to have sound, okay? The graphics can be done in the office. And there will be no additional investment. Nobody can afford to give you these additional people to accompany you for your story. So the journalist has got to learn the new skills. you either learn the new skills or you find that you become irrelevant in the daily operations of your newsroom. Thank you, Bakari. And sorry for interrupting.
That's a good contribution. So shape in or shape out into the journalism profession. So coming to you, Bill Sangiwa, I understand you've been in the space of IT. You're the first one to actually start praying into this area over 20 years now, looking at your profile here. We are discussing on the opportunities coming with the invention of internet. And we are talking of the potential of us growing our business beyond newspaper, beyond the TV and the radio station, the traditional one. What are you seeing in this space in relation to news gathering, and especially on the technical production side of things, because that is your area of expertise?
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, thank you for that lengthy intro.
Hello. Hello, Bill. Can't hear you.
I'll ask a question to you. Can hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go.
So, sorry, the video seems to occupy all my bandwidth. So my point of view that I want to introduce the topic is completely from a technical point of view, and I'm trying to ask in a simple question to practitioner. Do they want to change or do they want to transform? Now, those are two things. I mean, change, you are responding to immediate surroundings that's affecting you. They are responding to social media, they are responding to everything that is immediately touching them. They are only changing. They are not transforming. They are core skills to gather new skills that are relevant today and tomorrow in the digital space where they are going to be existing. So they need to transform, in my opinion, not change, and then acquire the skills that will allow them to play in that space. Because now the follow-up to that, are they selling news or are they selling newspapers? You know, today, as you can see, the social media, it's about news. They don't sell newspaper. They're not selling the whole thing from front to the last page. I always read what's happening. Now everybody talks about COVID. Does any newspaper play part in that trending topic? No. Why? Because we are still stuck up in our own, where we are stimulated by that's only change. We are doing better ourselves. So the issue of the content becomes easy to access. The keynote speaker was talking about the target audiences being on mobile. That is making it easy to access. The next question being in the region where economy and value for everything, is it affordable? We are price sensitive. Now, if you are selling me newspaper, certainly it won't be affordable. If you are selling me news, more likely it will be affordable because that's what I'm interested in. I will get what I'm interested in and I will go on for that. And obviously make it better. I mean, we all complain about fake news. And then the journalists are not providing authentic news. So you are obviously making me consume the fake news. So they need to make sure that in the whole space of innovation, they need to have easy to access, affordable, use, and better news. That will attract audience to them. Those are the skills that they need to transform and prepare and get now. What skills require them to play in that? That becomes, again, as you say, we have to look at our academic situation on all that stuff. But they need to be, as it is in this space, they need to have the driver for relevance. As I see in the newspaper, they need to have, my little summary for drivers for relevance. They need to be factual. They need to fight the fake news by being factual. They are putting on their relevance in the digital space. They need to be timely. Something happened. Something is trending in the social media space or in the digital space. Are you coming up and offer a factual view of the same story? Are you offering broader view of the same story? Then make it easy to access. So it's factual, it's timely, and it's easy to access. From my mobile devices, I can access that. And of course, there are many players. So as you know, the professor said, you have multiple sources, NASA and all that stuff. Can you make it better than NASA? Can you make it easier for me, who's a general reader, who wants to read about the Mars rover, more interesting for me to see and read and understand, not the way NASA put it. So make it better than the others. And then obviously, as it's down and I'm trying to focus on our region because survivability is very important, make it affordable. It can be free per se, but make it affordable because we are price sensitive environment. So how you're making it affordable and all that stuff, those are again little things that, there was an issue about understanding your customer, understanding what they want, the economics, dynamics, and all that stuff, AI and that big data. Those comes to play with, of course, by analyzing the news for who. You may sell it more an academic information than a general news, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the dynamics that will come in. And that's what I think in today's world, the news media really, really needed to understand. They should not change, they should transform in their innovation. What are the key drivers to that innovation? And then they have also to be relevant. And be relevant and of course, play a part in the distribution media of preference to most of the readers and everybody else.
Thank you very much, Bill. You are bringing a very important point here that these skills, they need to be informed with what do we want to offer, and that should come from the consumers. So once you do that, then you'll go looking for the right skills and how do you develop. Coming to you, Michael Kimoro, you are a techpreneur with a demonstrated experience in building and managing dynamic teams and driving innovation projects. So basically, you develop software. I want to share with us what are the opportunities you are seeing, what are the challenges you are seeing in developing tools which will help us gather news fast, efficiently, and also disseminate it in the way our readers or our audiences want to consume them. Michael?
Hello, my internet dropped. Can you repeat the question, please?
I was saying in relation to the fact that you play in the software development area, I want you to link with to show us what are the opportunities of developing software or tools which will enable us correct news, which will be also disseminated using these modern tools to the readers where they are and the way they want it.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. So very quickly, maybe I want to talk about the distinguished partnership that we have been able to have with Mwananchi in developing one of the largest football database in Tanzania, and helping football fans across the country and across the East African region to get quick updates on football matches scores, sports news, and the statistics on Tanzanian leagues and some of the major competitions across East Africa. So basically, it is the largest database for football statistics, and we use mobile applications, which is available for both Android and iOS. You can go to Google Play Store or iStore and search Soccer by Mwanaspoti. You will download the app that allows you to get quick updates on all matches, which are covered in live manner, as in live score. And we are leveraging the huge network of Mwananchi reporters from every angle of the stadiums across the, across the country, who are updating these scores and all this information in real time, so that anytime your favorite team plays, you can get access to quick information about everything that's happening on the pitch. But on top of that, we are building an infrastructure that right now will place Mwanaspoti as being a trusted one-stop center for all these statistics and be able to disseminate them to other services and products through different technological tools, such as open APIs that we are currently working on to develop, so that to see how can we disseminate this bunch of information that we already have to other services, to other people, to other businesses that might be interested. So that's a bit about it. And I would say congratulations and thank you so much to Mwananchi for giving us this opportunity to work with you. But then looking at the amount of investment and massive transformation that you're trying to mobilize towards digital transformation, I feel it's a step in the right direction, and you're placing your brand to a point where, you're going to be the first to earn the rewards because of the massive investment that you do. And yeah, I'll be happy to answer more questions from the panelists during and after this session. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Thank you for connecting the technology side of things and the network of journalists or players in the field to put content in one area where people can access it. Asha Abinal, coming to you now. You are you play in a space of intersection, innovation, technology, and digital practice in new media. You're the founder and CEO of ICT-based company known as Media Convergence Company, and you focus on providing impactful digital solutions. So from the discussion above, from the presentation from Mr. Mtuma and the previous speakers, what do you see as the digital solutions we should be looking at, and the experience of actually collecting this information leading to bringing results to our users?
Thank you very much, Bakari, and thank you to all the presenters. I really enjoyed your presentations, and the images from Mr. Matthew, they were just so very, very engrossing, very nice. So from your question, what I would like to say is that considering how the conversation has gone, one thing I would like to touch is we really need to be keen and careful while we are applying this new form of technology to the media. When we're talking about digital innovation, it's not about technology itself, but rather about the ability to utilize it to solve existing traditional problems, such as the media itself. And considering all these, there is a need to understand that there is two ways of approach of looking at digital innovation, especially for the future of journalism. One of them is adoption of digital innovation or application of digital innovation. Seen as like we've discussed from the former presenters, it is very clear that we are lagging behind in technology. So where we are right now, our fellow developed countries have been there for, I would say maybe 10 years ago. We are all using, the same technology, we're all going global, but the forms have been different. And in that context, for digital innovation in the future of journalism, it will fail miserably for a country like Tanzania if we adapt it as opposed to applying it. For if with adoption, the model is copying exactly how the instigators of digital innovation apply it to journalism, drawn in the context of how information is gathered and also how it is obtained from their consumers, which is slightly different from the Tanzanian consumers. And when I say Tanzania, I had looked more into the context of Tanzania, believing that the East African region sort of shares a similar, I would say, stage of how it has applied technology. For such places or regions such as the East Africans, we need to deliberately. Oh, sorry.
Go on.
Yeah, I had thought that I thought that we were doing it offline. Okay. So for us, to be able to adapt, as Tanzanians to be able to adapt, we have to deliberately apply digital innovation by understanding our environment, by understanding our people, the consumers, and avoid being rigid by pushing the etiquettes of old media.
Asha, you're muted.
Just mute me. I was.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I can proceed.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Oh, sorry. Let me. Yeah. So that is what I mean. So I would say a lot has been said, and just to emphasize, I would like to emphasize more in what is to be done, especially in the adoption process. There is an urgent need to adopt the digital skills. So we are talking about all these things, but I would say the first and foremost is applying these digital skills to fill the gap of digital knowledge for those who are working in the field. There are so many digital skills, more than 50 digital skills, but talking in the context of a journalist or a person aspiring to be a journalist, they can just start with 10 basic ones, which are very common. Like with them, you start with 5, you start with 10, you would be in a better position to play in the field of media as it is at this moment. So I would just mention, and for those who are interested, they can look them up. And like I said, there are more than 50. So a person could look at, you have to be very good. First, you have to be very good in content generation. You have to be very good in content generation, and that comes with how you write it, the language you use, the verification and everything, just all the etiquettes which comes to creating content in a more accurate way. The other thing you need to be good is content curation. The other thing is content localization. I would also say content visualization, like the graphics. We've seen the presentation here from our prior speaker. That is beautiful. A journalist has to be able to do that. And Lillian has talked about Canvas. Canvas does all that. So and the beauty of digital skills is that you are not you can participate in several trainings to get to know how to do them, but they rely more on a person themselves, how you push yourself in getting to know more on how it is done and what you can do and attain. You also have to know how to manage the online community. I think of all of us here, Nani is a very good example. Mena Ali is a very good example. It is not about only putting content yourself or placing yourself here. It is also how are you managing the community? How are you engaging with them? Are you giving them what they want? That sort of thing. You also need to know how to use the tools, the monitoring and evaluation tools. You want to know if your content is creating impact. If at all the content you're sharing is growing, if your audience is growing, if there is interaction, that's what all the reaction and engagement. And here we are not even talking about the likes and what. Sometimes you have some content has a lot of engagement and reach, but it doesn't have a lot of comments nor likes. So you need to know that. You also have to know the aspect of security. We know how it is very, very sensitive when you have information which is maybe Mwananchi, you send a journalist there, it's information which is very sensitive, and if they're not accustomed to how they can basically protect themselves, then you become vulnerable as a journalist. We also look at, you also need to know how to fact check with social media and all these sources of information. A lot of people are sharing information. Yeah, you're not going on the ground, but how do you make sure that the content that you've had and obtained online is verified in a way that it could be used? You also have to you also have to be very good at evidence gathering. And I really want to stop because I'm sort of repeating maybe in different ways. And when you talk about evidence gathering, you cannot have text. Mr. Matthew has said that when you go there and have text, there need to be an image of something. There need to be a video of something. And that is why you have a smartphone. As a journalist, your smartphone is your tool which you need at every single time. And all this, when you image all this, that is where you get the multimedia reporting, where Lilian Urio is very good at. And that is how you make information. You make sure that it is on social media. If you could make it in a way that you have the same information on mainstream media and social media, it could work very well. Otherwise, I think for the sake of time, I would really maybe excuse if there is more questions than anything, just to make sure that whatever content we provide as partners is that what is needed from the audience. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Asha. You see the way we put you at the end, and since you provide the impact through digital solution, you've actually provided a number of, you've actually introduced a number of solutions for the journalists to acquire the skills. Now I'll open it up to the audience, to the floor. If you have any question, I see we have 2 questions here. I'll start with these ones, but feel free to post or ask for, raise up your hand, and then you'll be allowed to make a comment or pose your question. So let me start by a question from Jones Mlusha. Ntuma, I think this will be directed to you. His question is NMG and the MCL working on any open innovation initiative, for instance, API, application programmer interface, for audiences to contribute or gathering or consume delivery in the era of digital journalism? Ntuma, share with us your experience in what you are doing in Nairobi for the group.
What he's asking is whether we encourage user-generated content. Is that what he's asking? Or is it asking whether we have collaborative tools that, that the audience can use to contribute? Wakati, I'm trying to understand the question.
He's asking about the tools. Jones, if you can unmute Jones, he can elaborate. Moderators, Miao. Oh, Ntuma is asking about tools.
Jones has been unmuted. You can proceed.
Okay, Jones.
Bakari, moderators, taking too much of the time. Good afternoon. Thank you for the session. I'm asking about the tools on this case.
Okay. None that we have deployed as yet that I can think of for now, and for very good reason. This does not mean that this is the end of the journey, but our platform is new. It's still at the MPV stage, I think now. MVP, sorry. And I would imagine that in the fullness of time, we should be able to collaborate with our audience. But we do agree and we appreciate that the news gathering process is no longer one way, that it's a collaborative process. Collaborative in the sense that the user contributes probably as much as a journalist in the creative process. So this is still in the future, but we have, I think, now enabled comments, which is a big step for us, because the law here holds us to account for the comments that users make on our site, and we have paid hefty penalties for comments that are posted below our stories, which is unfortunate because you see, when you punish the publisher for a user's comment, then you stifle debate. People cannot contribute freely, either because you over-moderate or because you play the cautious game and just disable comments. But as far as your question is concerned, not yet. But that's obviously that's where we're going. It's a collaborative, co-creative process. This content business. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tuma. Jones, are you satisfied? Move to the second question. There is a question from an anonymous attendee who is asking whether media owners and readers, their failure to appreciate digital and the digital media literacy affect digital innovation in media. So basically, he's asking whether owners or the readership in media houses in East Africa, their lack of interest or their low level of digital literacy tend to affect innovation in the media industry. So I'll ask Tuma to go first, and then I'll open it up for everyone else who wants to comment, because I don't see any other question at the moment.
Thank you, Bakari. The process of digital transformation, as you very well know, is a very difficult and very expensive process. If there is no enlightened leadership, then it can't take place. Unfortunately, if the ownership of your publisher, of your organization, is someone who does not, or is a group of people that does not appreciate the centrality of digital operations in your future, then of course you're going to struggle. It is important for every person to be involved and to play a constructive role in the process of digital transformation. Because it costs money, and because it involves a lot of investment and other opportunity costs. So if the media owner, or even the media managers, or the media leadership in the newsroom and in other parts do not appreciate and not digital literate, then it's not going to work. It will not work at all. No digital transformation will take place. Everybody has to be on board, and they all need to enthusiastically make the sacrifices necessary for digital to take root. Thank you, Bakari.
Okay.
I would like to add to that, if that's fine. Can I?
Yeah. Go for it, Asha.
So, the question, the recent question, that is one of the core challenge of media and journalism that has been identified for a very long time, especially in media, very different from the African continent compared to others. So today, more than ever, digital innovation provides an opportunity to embrace the viability of future of journalism, because we have a lot of factors and reasons why we can do better. We don't need media houses to change. We need the journalists to change. There is more problem. The challenge lies more to the journalists compared to the media. If the journalists will change, it will force the media houses to change. So media houses, these are a bit bureaucratic, not in a bad way, but their formalization, it is an institution which is formalized. It has its ways and modes of operation. But with an individual as a journalist, you can work on making sure that you can add value into the process. So those who are going to adapt earlier, like the likes of MENA, are those who are going to benefit, and they're the ones who are going to survive. The landscape might not be different, might not be friendlier, but for us as Tanzania, the recent deliberate efforts of the government on ICT instills hope that innovation and technology is going to do very well, also in the media. So we have professional content generators, and this I'm talking about journalists, whether they are employed or not employed, who are not active online, just because they have negative attitude, as said by Lillian. Maybe they are looking up to those who have been in the field and do not appreciate the space. So they need to change. The mindset should change. I've heard that most media houses only have a selected number of news gathered and published. So the task at hand is, how do we change the mindset of this group, journalists, professionals who have content but don't want to join the online space, so that they can be willing to be part of the digital skills, capacity building, to be reliable and dependable when it comes to information that can be shared online, while at the same time adding value to what they do. So they should learn from those who have started. We've heard Mena saying that she's getting a lot individually because of her skills in journalism compared to even where she works. So it is not about the media house. It is about the journalist, him or herself. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. As a follow-up question to that, I'll ask you, Mina and Lillian, because you are journalists here, so to speak. There's a question posed on the chat that has the need to have multiple skills put a lot of pressure to journalists?
Has the need to have multiple skills put a lot of pressure on journalists?
Yes.
I wouldn't say I know about that, but what I would say is, when you learn journalism, when you go to college for it, when you go to university for it, you originally learn multiple skills. And as a journalist, multiple skills should not make you uncomfortable, because some organizations even do not hire journalists without multiple skills. And as much as we're moving, machines are taking over, and things are becoming into one. Before, let's say before in our lives, there was probably no washing machine, but now people don't, at some point there is a washing machine, as more as we elevate, things are becoming into one. You can even tell that difference by the cameras we used back then with tapes and everything, and the cameras that we use right now, that some can even go and have a connector to direct to YouTube at the same time. So as a journalist, you need to be equipped by many things. This is whether, my phone was ringing. I'm saying, as a journalist, you do need to be equipped by many different abilities. And this is whether social media is taking over or it is not. You need to have knowledge about camera, to have knowledge in different aspects.
Lillian, thank you. Thank you, Mina. Lillian?
So I don't think it should threaten a real journalist.
Okay.
Thank you. I actually think that, and I'm reading this, having multiple skills as having the additional digital skills. I actually think, for me personally, and for those who actually do have the digital skills and enable them to produce content, the full content, the audio, visual, everything on their own, I actually find that it doesn't put pressure. It's actually way better, because for those who do not know, back in the days, you used to write your story. If it's you needed somebody for audio, then you go to audio, you sit there, you have to wait until they do audio. And if you needed someone to do the visual, someone else shoots and then someone else brings it back to you, and then you have to go to an editor. It was a long process and it was very tedious. And sometimes you lost control on how you wanted the story told. You might have an angle, you might have had and need a certain way you wanted it told. And sometimes you just did the story and then you handed it over to the media house and they gave it to somebody else and you lost complete control. So I think that it gives you a lot of control on how, from the moment you gather your story to how you put out your output. So having those extra skills is actually a real huge added asset. It's not, it doesn't take away, it doesn't add the pressure, it actually makes it so much better, unless you're working on time constraints. The good thing with that, if you're doing news and you're working with time constraints, there are actually ways that, I'd like to say templates kind of, that you work within. So the pressure of what you're actually going to produce and how it's going to look like is taken away. So no, there's no extra pressure. And I would just like to add something to the previous question of whether digital media owners need to up their literacy skills or understand technology. It's very simple. If they do not change, they'll get left behind because consumers will go to where they want something. And if they're not getting the content that they want, they'll go to people are giving them content. And right now, the competition isn't even between just media houses. It's between media houses and individuals. An individual who can create amazing content can put that content out there on their own. They can gather it, they can create it, they can distribute it. There are within countries certain laws that are making it a little bit hard and hiccups here and there. But as the years go by, these laws will be more in uniform and it will be so much easier. And for any media house right now that isn't taking the steps. I know that the presenter did say it's expensive, and it is if you're doing it at a large scale. But unfortunately, with the current technology, it's also cheaper for the individual to create niche, wonderful content. So if they don't change, they'll get left behind.
Okay, thank you, Lillian. Another question from Imani Mketema is asking why ordinary people today need media literacy more than ever. What's so special in the age of new media innovation? I think basically it's asking why is it media literacy more important now to the readers out there? Mutuma, you want to go for that?
Yes, Bakari, just help me with the question again, please.
Why do ordinary people need media literacy today?
Why do ordinary people need media literacy today? I think I would imagine for the same reason that they've always required media literacy. I think from a common sense perspective, you need a certain level of knowledge to be able to enjoy the world. You know, you need to, if you're into art, you need to know something about art for you to appreciate it. If you are into cars, you need to know something about cars for you to participate in that kind of activity. But now, today, the media scene is collaborative, is co-creative, is participatory. Okay? If you go out there and see something, you can shoot a video and it can be broadcast and it goes viral and maybe you can make some money out of it. So for the ordinary person, it's important to be part of the process. And then there are judgments that you need to make to see whether the information that you're receiving is credible or is not credible. So I would imagine that you need to do so that you can participate, and you need to have those skills so that you can make judgments about the importance and usefulness of the information that you are receiving. Sometimes I see people read stuff on social media and believe it. You know, there was one guy who tweeted that the President Kenyatta had been airlifted to India for I don't know whether it was brain surgery or something like that, and it cost a big thing. 45 minutes later, the president was addressing something. He was opening something somewhere. So, you know, people need to know, to have a certain basic appreciation of the media in order to judge the accuracy and usefulness of the information that they are receiving. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Another question. This goes to Bill. How technology affects news gathering, production, delivery? Very brief.
In a very short way, availability of cheap, affordable tools have pretty much allowed every Tom, Dick, and Harry to be able to generate information. That means gather, can go and get it from NASA or go to get it from anything, make some news or make it up from my mind and make it there. And obviously, you know, gathering and production now has been, you know, mixed up together. So TikTok and the likes has made it extremely easy for somebody to create very studio quality audio visual presentation, which is news as long as it's somebody else is, you know, acquiring it. Now, whether it's factual or fake is another matter. So with such tools available, it has made it extremely easy for anyone to gather and produce news. Now with social media, then it does help now the dissemination or production. So I don't need to be Mwananchi news, you know, editor or something. I can just produce, put it on social media, and it's hula, everybody can see it. So yes, technology in shortest way has made it simpler and easier for people to gather and produce high quality news that may be of value or not. So again, which goes head up to join together with the media literacy, we needed to emphasize that people need to, when they see something, how can they identify? And that's where Mwananchi needs to be now the Wikipedia, where people, when they read something, go there to verify the authenticity of this news. So if we as journalists abdicate that duty, then you certainly will disappear from existence, and obviously it's a lost opportunity to journalism.
Thank you very much. Another question, this one I'll direct to Lillian and then anyone else want to add. How can ordinary people, citizen journalists for that matter, help the modern journalists do their job, especially in Tanzania? Lillian?
Okay, sorry, I lost you a little bit. Can you please repeat your question?
How can ordinary people, we are talking about citizen journalists, help the modern journalists do their jobs, especially in Tanzania?
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Already ordinary people are helping, and the easiest way is that when you see something or you think you see something that's newsworthy, is to gather as much information as you can. What is going on, where it's going on, how it's going on, who's involved, and why you think it happened, and then you just send it to the journalist. Now you might not have, let's say, emails of the journalists and so on, but an easy way is just follow them on their social media platforms. If you follow them on social media platforms, you can go in the DMs, in the direct messages, in the inbox, and you can ask them, hey, I just saw 1, 2, 3. This is the, do you think it's newsworthy? And they'll communicate with you, they'll get the information for you, and they'll continue with it. And another thing that is very important, give them permission to use it. Because if you're a citizen journalist and you're the first one to be there and you get it, you actually have the original, rights over that information. So give them permission and collaborate with them when they get back to you and ask you for extra information. Another thing that sometimes it happens, and it used to happen when I was still a journalist, and it still happens some journalists, is that sometimes journalists will reach out to you and ask you, let's say, to be on the interview, to be interviewed and so on, since you were the first person or their source. And people are kind of shy, or they somehow always feel very insecure about coming on air and just giving their opinion. And when you're retelling something, there's no right or wrong answer. You just say, listen, I saw it. The blue car is the first one that went over and knocked a tree or something. Just assist and be that give them that original voice that from the scene. So that's a great way to assist them.
Oh, thank you. The last question on my chat here is from Sheila Seema. It's asking, is digital literacy well addressed in Tanzania, and what are some of the ways we can filter authentic news from fake news? Again, Lillian.
No, it's not well addressed in Tanzania because we can see it in WhatsApp groups and so on. Every other week, there's a whole news something, whether it's a rehashed old Facebook story or something that's just going on. Right now with Corona, we see with COVID-19, we see this whole thing on vaccine and so on. No, it's people don't know how to fact check information that's forwarded to them. They have no idea that there's easy ways. Even people put out fake, they'll say, oh, it's seen on BBC or seen on CNN. And even the image they put out might have, let's say, a false logo or a logo with the wrong colors or the wrong fonts and so on. People don't know how to look at it. So personally, I think it'll be great for media houses since it's their basic business. Let's say Mwananchi just had one page on all their pages, just one page that says, hey, if you want to check news, look at 1, 2, 3. That would be a really easier way for people to say, oh, I got this information. I don't know if it's true. How do I check? Oh yeah, I know. Mwananchi always has that information out there. TCRA did have a campaign back that ran, but it was more about how people should conduct themselves in putting out information. It wasn't how people should fact check once they come across information. It just said, ukikuta na habari futa. If it's something you don't agree with, it's a bad news. But normally you have that kind of knee-jerk reaction. That if the news is really, really horrible, then you're like, okay, not quite bad. And it's not, I mean, it doesn't seem so bad and you can't even tell the difference and you just forward it.
Okay, thank you very much. Now,
let's say, kuna ajira, young brothers and sisters, they turn up at this building thinking they're getting new ajira. And they get there and they find out somebody was feeling like doing a prank online. So so we need a media literacy, campaign, yes, but we definitely needed to live somewhere online where people can get back and see the steps that they need to do to check that the information they're getting comes from credible sources, or at least from whatever source it comes from.
Okay, thank you, Lillian. Asha, for a minute, if you want to contribute on that one before I give you an opportunity to say your last remarks.
Oh, sorry. So I think it's I agree with what Lillian has said, but I also want to add that it is 50-50. When we look at social media, the trends of how content is shared is changing a lot. Especially the WhatsApp group is we call it dark media because you can't really measure. But then again, it's a really good place where we have seen involvement of the type of content which is shared. I'll just give an example and remind everyone how it was when accidents used to happen, and a lot of people used to share content. So there is an increase of people who understand right now the type of content to share. Like right now, you can share content on WhatsApp, and people will ask, "Have you verified? Is it true?" People never used to ask that; they just forwarded. Right now, you can share a picture of a child and maybe they're being abused or anything. It might be news, but people will sort of encourage not to share because now then you're still abusing the child by sharing it to more people, that sort of thing. So I would call it 50-50, and otherwise I agree with whatever Lillian has said. So you said so yeah, the session was very good. Thank you very much, Nani Bakari and Habari Haben Mwananchi for the opportunity. It was a learning process I've really enjoyed, and yeah, looking forward to more sessions in the future. Thank you, and nice to meet you all. If we could get a copy of the presentation, I would really appreciate it. I would really like to get a copy of that, if acceptable to Mr. Matthew.
Okay, thank you. Your last word, Kimoro.
So yeah, so thank you for this opportunity to be part of the here, and it's always moving very fast. So I think it's a challenge for organizations and everyone that is involved, whether you want to jump with it or not. And at this point, it's not even a luxury, or it's not even a choice. It is a mandatory thing that organizations and any other stakeholders, we have to take advantage of the technological advancements and see how we can innovate around our processes to make them efficient, and so that we stay relevant in this very fast. Hope to see you in further sessions.
Thank you, Michael. Mina, your last word. Mina Ali.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, of course, to speak, but most importantly, to learn. I've learned a lot today from Lillian. I've learned from Asha, I think. I've learned also from Mr. Mutuma, if I'm not mistaken. And this was obviously a very eye-opening experience. And yeah, and I just had one idea that I wanted to suggest on how we can help citizen journalists, have the right information or know how to differentiate. I am thinking it would be nice if Mwananchi could have posts on, if information is wrong or right, how it looks like, and just post them, weekly or daily, so that these posts just go around, and so many people have information on that. And I think that information is kind of out there, but it's not enough. So if Mwananchi could do that, I think it would be nice, because everybody is a citizen journalist. For as long as you can capture news and send it to the right person, you already are a citizen journalist. So we need to take everyone as one of us, as our sources. And we need to now think of ways where we can equip them as well, and make them understand that this is how right information looks like, because wrong information can also be dangerous. And we've seen this during the COVID-19 times, when people are forwarding information and it was making people worried. And so I think it is everybody's responsibility to make sure that the whole society knows how to differentiate the wrong information and the right information. So I think out of this meeting, we all need to come up with something that can help with that. And that's about it. But aside from that, thank you so much. I was happy to take part. And my social media handle, I'm mostly on Instagram. It's Mina_Ali. Reach out to me anytime, to anybody who has a question or advice, and I'll be more than happy to respond. Thank you.
Asante sana, Mina. Asante sana for the idea. We'll work on it.
Thank you.
Lillian?
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for having me. Fantastic session. And my parting words I would say is that some of us have knowledge or access to a lot of these tools. Most of them are free, that journalists can use. And because one of the biggest things we've discussed here is how journalists are not adapting, but one of the things could be that they have fear, or they just don't have the knowledge because they're aware of industry standard tools that people need to pay for. So my request, like Mina previously said, that we need to do something that we move forward, is, for example, for Habari Hub to have a site, just add on to their normal site, just add a page where journalists can contribute the tools they use, and editing and so on, instead of going out in the World Wide Web and just trying to figure out what to use. I can go in there and I'm like, oh, so and it makes it much easier. And so we share information and also make it easier for us to discover the types of tools that people can use out there. So that would be great for Habari Hub to do that, so that people can have easy access to the information of the tools that they can use, and then feel less scared of using these tools, adapt easier and adapt faster. And they know that if somebody else is using it up there, I can reach out to them and they can help me out.
Okay, thank you very much, Lillian. That also is taken note of. Bill Sangiwa, your parting word.
It's a pleasure being in this group of the wise ladies and gentlemen. And many thanks to you, Bakari, for inviting me. My take here, first of all, I do not promote regulator-driven approach on regulating or monitoring content online. I just want them to remain as regulator and not getting down to content regulation. The issue of fake news and that is an opportunity, not a threat. If you go into a change just making it as a nuisance and it's a nuisance and that's why I react to it, then you'll see it as a, it's not a good thing. But if you take it as an opportunity and you transform and see how that opportunity can generate a new business line to Mwananchi, being the go-to place where I want to fact check on this particular news. You have huge readership in Swahili only. So that readership, you can attract it by being the fact check for news for Swahili readers. Why don't you take that initiative using technology you have, be a source of news, be a source of fact checking news? So that way becomes an opportunity. It's no longer a threat, but again, you can't do that if you don't adapt to modern ways of news gathering. And do you subscribe? How do you get people to be your contributors and all that stuff? As people use the word citizen, journalism. So how do you vet those people who are coming to put on news to you and make sure that news is factual and things like that? So those are the issues but I think it's a more opportunity than a threat if you transform.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Mtuma, the last two.
Thank you, Bakari. In the digital transformation process, the work of transforming the way journalism happens and is consumed, the most difficult part is not the acquisition of technology or any of the other tasks that are associated with that. The most difficult part is the culture of the journalists and of the people and of the leadership involved in the transforming unit. My message to journalists is that digital transformation is not just an institutional responsibility. It's not the responsibility of your employer alone. It's also a personal responsibility that your own interests and the interests of your profession require that you learn new skills and you take a different approach to your journalism. Your story is not fire and forget. You don't come from court and just file the story and forget about it. You file it and then you follow it online and develop it and grow it. Stories are no longer discrete. Story is perpetual. You can keep it running for a very long time, update it, bring debate into it, integrate multimedia storytelling devices so that it's a wholesome package. Engage your audience and learn in the process. Learn from them and learn from the context. So that's my challenge to journalists, that please take the time to learn what you need to do to survive in the digital space. Finally, Bakari, to thank you for inviting me and for hosting this session, and also for my fellow panelists for their insightful contribution and discussions. And I look forward to participating in many more in the future. Thank you very much.
Asante sana, Mr. Mtuma. And ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end of our session. I would like to thank Habari Hub and the leadership of Mia Wilmo, and then Dimwenya, who has been busy putting this together as part of our first participation in the Innovation Week in Tanzania under the HDIF program. We've had a number of things. So what we are going away with to journalists, create interest. A company won't have all the resources to give you the skills. And there's a lot of free content, free program, free tools. You just need to know what the customers want and what is relevant to them. And then we go and look for those skills. Our friend Christina and Tandani from the chat room. Sorry that your question came as we are winding up. But yes, the importance of telling the truth and the importance of having researched the content is still a challenge. And the reason we are holding such discussions here is to see how we can continue improving the way we run media for the purpose of developing our respective countries and eventually the continent at large. So from me, Bakari Machum from Mwananchi Communication, nasema asante sana. Until next time, we hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bakari and all.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Mina.